For a long time, I've been fascinated by the question of, can we distinguish between a mystical or an awakened state and a psychotic one? This is something that I've been really interested in because the two states of being can, on the surface, seem very similar. And it can be, even when you are in the experience itself, it may not be easy to determine which one this is. You might feel like you're going crazy, or afterwards feel like, oh, that was just a, insane experience. But when you're in it, you may feel like you have, amazing access to secrets of the world and the universe, and yet acting in very erratic and nonsensical ways. So how do we differentiate the two? Well, I'm in the midst of studying this exact question in a research project at my university. And one of the things that I have found, one of the articles that I discovered around this, is an article that gave three surveys to three different populations. Contemplatives that engage in various practices that often lead to mystical type experiences, normal people, and psychotics in a psych ward. And they gave three different tests to these three groups. The first test was the M scale, which measures mystical experience. The second was a kind of ego scale that I won't go into the details of, and I'm not super familiar with yet. And then the third one was the Narcissistic Personality Index. What was interesting about this study is that just looking at the M scale, the mystical questionnaire, you couldn't tell the difference between contemplatives and psychotics. You could distinguish them from the normal people, but you couldn't differentiate them from one another. But you could differentiate the contemplatives from the psychotics with the other two scales. And I find that fascinating because it means that there is a difference. There is a way that we can differentiate if somebody is a contemplative and having mystical states of consciousness, or somebody is a psychotic and having an unhinged experience from reality. Now, it could very well be that the content of a mystical experience or a psychotic experience is actually mystical. It could be that a psychotic person, somebody who's experiencing psychosis in various forms, is actually experiencing a really profound and altered state of consciousness. But they may not be able to conceive of it or, integrate it in a way that is healthy, that allows them to operate and function in the regular world. And so that leads to this kind of dysfunction, this kind of, seemingly getting stuck in and unable to make sense of the world, in this altered state of consciousness. So what can we take from this? What is a takeaway here? One thing that really jumps out at me is that they use the Narcissistic Personality Index as one of the differentiating questionnaires. And I find that interesting because this is something that I've heard from different spiritual teachers, and I think it's very true, that if your spiritual revelation, your mystical state of consciousness is your awakening experience, if it makes you feel better or different or special in some way, then you're probably off the mark. Because if you feel like you are experiencing these immensely profound and sacred experiences, and you feel that you are the center of the world, that is leaning towards the narcissism. But if you have these same experiences and feel yourself to be a center of the world, then you are engaging with the rest of the world, with the rest of the human race, with other beings in a connected and horizontal connection where you're not putting yourself, feeling yourself to be above, elevated over others, or somehow special or different. And I think that's a really important thing to look out for on our spiritual journey. the ego loves to, make itself feel superior. It's essentially a superiority complex that a lot of people in the world are trying in different ways, whether through status mongering, through economic success, through sexual prowess, and the cars that you own. Lots of different ways human beings try to bolster their ego, bolster their sense of superiority, so that they feel worthy, so that they feel good, so that they feel okay. And what that really points to is a deep lack of okayness, a deep lack of security. Secretly, everyone that is exhibiting these patterns of superiority really suffers from an inferiority complex. That's one of the things that Alfred Adler, one of the seminal psychologists alongside Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud, introduced this notion of superiority and inferiority. And so when we engage in spiritual practice and in spiritual pursuit, it can be really easy to fall into the sense of, I am better than somebody else. I am wiser than. I am more than. I have greater insight into the world than my mother, or these other people that just watch TikTok or are into politics or what have you. Whatever judgments you have about the world that you're projecting outwards, you can use that as a way to kind of distance yourself and elevate yourself. But what this study shows is that true contemplatives, true practitioners of these traditions, which in this study were relatively high-ranking and well-integrated, they don't put themselves above others. They don't see themselves as somehow the center of the world, or having access to a special relationship to the ground of being. Yes, you can have more awareness, but it doesn't necessarily make you any better or different than somebody else who maybe hasn't practiced in that tradition for quite as long, or hasn't felt the call to explore that dimension of reality yet. So, in taking a takeaway for your own journey, don't fall into the trap of elevating yourself. If you find that you feel that your insights, your experiences, your mystical states, your awakening is making you special or different than others, then slow down. Tap the brakes, because that may be your ego talking. That may be your ego trying to use the spiritual experience or awakening that you've had, which may have been legitimate, but the ego then comes in and tries to hijack it and say, we had this amazing experience, and now we are the next Messiah. Now we are the next prophet. Now we can write the holy book, or simply sit at home on our meditation pillow feeling smug and superior to others. Watch out for that. That's a type of spiritual bypassing where we are essentially trying to hop over the hard work of humbling ourselves, of the hard work of disentangling the ego's wounds and insecurities from probably early in childhood, where maybe we didn't feel quite loved enough, or supported enough, or popular enough, and later in life we try and make up for that. This kind of disentangling, this kind of healing is fundamental to providing a stable base for any kind of spiritual growth and spiritual, building that you want to do on top of your regular way of being. So again, if it makes you feel a little bit special or different or superior to others, tap the brakes. You may need to do a little bit of shadow work, and you may need to bring it down a notch. Not to say that the experiences are invalid, but the superiority is something that is suspect. If this video connects with you, and if you are going through a spiritual emergence or emergency or an awakening, or want support on your spiritual journey, reach out to me. I'll put a link in the description about how to contact me And you can find more about me and my work on my website. And if this speaks to you, if you want support, if you'd like to work with me, then reach out and we'll set up a consult to figure out if this is a good partnership and relationship that would benefit you in your spiritual growth and your journey.